Hey everybody, my name's Philip and welcome to my shop. So in this episode, I'm just going to discuss clamps. Now, I'm not going to get into what clamp's best and what clamp you should have. I'm going to tell you what works best for me and how I use these different clamps in my shop. So hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's one clamp that I use a lot. I don't particularly use it that much for gluing up stuff, but more to hold stuff down. So this is an F-style clamp made by Jorgensen, and they work really well. But I love using these guys to clamp my jigs and fixtures down to my bench. They just do a really good job, and they have a lot of torque. So here's a clamp that I've recently discovered. It's made by Microjig. Match Fit is the name of the type of clamp, I guess. And the way it works is you use a dovetail bit to actually do it. It just slides in, so it's like a key. They work really, really well. I've used these many times, and the longer I've had them, the more reasons or applications to use them in. So this is how it works. I've already run my dovetail bit in here, did a little grid work, and now you just bring your piece of wood and clamp down. So it's essentially an F-style clamp just designed to go inside a dovetail bit. And I mean, that guy's not going anywhere. It works really, really well. So these are some clamps I use for when I'm doing jigs. I like making a lot of different jigs. It's necessary for my work. So these are for my rocking chairs. And this clamp is made by Woodpecker. It's actually designed, I believe, to be used with like a T-track I have here on my router table. It has a little 1/4-20 bolt, slides in here, and you can clamp stuff down. But I've used them. Instead, I went ahead and mortised that bolt in there, and I've used them for a hold-down clamp, somewhat like a toggle clamp. So the way this works is you're going to put your part in there, you rotate it, lock it down, and now you can lock the actual clamp down. It's pretty amazing how much this will hold something down. I've never had a part slip. And what's really awesome about it is this is a two-stage setup. So I do one side, and now I've got to come to the other side. So you just loosen and pivot it around and lock it down, and you're good to go. So you lock it again. And now I'm ready to flush trim. So as you can see, they work great, and it also saves you, instead of having 4 toggle clamps, you can just have 2. So of course, every shop has to have a bunch of toggle clamps. Now these guys, many different makers out there. I think these probably came from Harbor Freight. They work just fine considering they came from Harbor Freight. They do the job and a little bit cheaper. I use a lot of these for a lot of the jigs I make, and anytime I can, like the other one from Woodpecker I showed you, I kind of did a similar setup. It's a pivot block, so there's a bolt going into an insert, and that allows me to be able to do one side of an operation, clamp it down, take care of that, and then once that's done, I can bring this over to the other side and just pivot it round and tying it down. Now the reason this works is because I've only got like a half of a pivot that's happening. If I had to spin this thing around and around, it's going to just come off, right? But just that little bit, that difference from there to there, it doesn't affect it. So great clamps work really well for many different operations. So here's another clamp that I use a lot for jig making. It's a push-pull clamp. Works really well, and this is just one application I use it for. So these are the back legs of my rockers, and it's important when I do this operation there's no blowout, and this is going to push it in, into location and hold it there. So it works great. So here are a couple of clamps I use. I've already gone through in another video about the K-Buddy type clamps, so check that video out. It's about gluing 101, gluing panels. this is just your simple basic bar clamp. They work great for many reasons. They have a lot of torque. You can really bring something home with them, and they're cheap compared to a lot of the K-body type clamps and bar clamps. Now, I prefer the bar type clamp, but where these come in handy, like I said, they're cheap. But if I have a really long glue up to do, you can just go ahead and buy a long bar and take these heads off and put them on. So they're really versatile for that type of work. Now, these guys are kind of my go-to guys. They work really well. This particular one has a little wedge pin. They can be a little finicky, and I will point out there's some other models of these out there that are probably a little better than these, and it's the handle. I don't like this crank style Model T or whatever handle that's going on here. And for this simple reason, unless you're hanging out, you're going to end up smashing your knuckles, hitting to a bench. It can be pretty frustrating. But I will tell you, they can, bring some stuff home. If you have a joint that's being stubborn and you need to close it, this guy is going to get it done. So these are, just a few of the clamps I like to use for, case work and stuff in my shop. So this is a wood screw that I use, hardly never. This is the type of clamp that you have to get when you start your own wood shop because it's kind of the iconic woodworker's clamp. But that being said, I have found a use for it. So I'm just going to show you that real quick. And it comes in really handy when you want to take that shot of you hand planing. Put that guy in there, look at that. All right, joking aside, this guy, I don't use it that often. I do love these, they just look awesome and they're kind of iconic for woodworkers. But I have used them, and there are many practical uses for these. Just in my shop, I don't use them that much, but here's one use that I would do. You can kind of use it as a vise. So I'll clamp my board if I need to shoot an edge. Make sure you get them going parallel. They're a little tricky, but once you've used them a bit, you get used to it. And so now I want to hand plane that edge. If you don't have a tail vise or a shoulder vise, you can clamp it down. And now, it's pretty sturdy, it's not going anywhere. Now you can hand plane. Here's my bench. It has the bench dogs so that I can use different hold downs, hold fasts. So here's one, pretty basic, been around for hundreds of years. Works really well for different applications. You just tap it down. Now it holds that down. You can use a couple of them. They work great. Definitely something you need to have in your arsenal of clamps. So everybody needs to have a bunch of these spring clamps in their shops. I can't tell you one particular thing I use them for, but I find myself reaching for them quite often. Always to do those little odd things that are extra hand that you need. Simply you can put it on if you're trying to bend a radius. You can kind of set it up on the points, push in. They work really well for that. Go ahead and draw that guy out. It's hard to beat. For, a buck or whatever these cost, you should get yourself a bunch. So I love these guys. I believe they're called bench knives. They're made by Veritas. They're designed to go in a 3/4 inch bench dog hole. I have square. It still works in here just fine. You can actually lock it down too from the top. It has a wedge action, so when you start tightening it, it's going to slide and wedge into that hole. I've never found any need to do that. I just drop this guy in here and use it without doing that. Application I like to use it, I've got a couple of them here. And it's just a wedge, a piece of wood that's going to be planed or routed or whatever. And it really holds it quite nice. So if I'm doing some prep work, It's hard to beat. Nice thing about it is it's low profile. I believe it's about a 1/4 inch, if not 3/16. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Philip Morley, and this has been Clamping 101. Cheers.